Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes. So, 5 segments, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, 1 guest, 3 guests tonight, actually. Some singing, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, how are you?
Oh my God. Everybody, you have no idea the chaos that was just happening before I came on. So I'm okay, but this was a last minute everything. Here we go.
Okay.
Working up to the wire tonight.
How was your Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, we haven't been on since Thanksgiving.
No, we have not.
It was really quiet and nice and just sweet.
Good.
We didn't eat our turkey.
Yeah.
I really just do the turkey for the gravy. No one in my family, my husband likes the turkey. He makes a turkey sandwich. Did you make turkey sandwiches? Did you have a lot of leftovers?
Wonder Bread. Yeah, I bought like a 22-pound turkey for like 9 people, including 1 vegan. So we had a lot of turkey left over. It went a long way. I say I made the turkey. I did not prepare it. I just
prepared it.
My wife, she cooks we have a big Oster turkey cooker thing that we use once a year, and it's wonderful. And I have to say, this has been, it's a little bit of a sad week. I have to say, I heard news that Chris Cillizza laid off by CNN, and personally, I'm really impacted by this because I don't know. He's always like sort of the perfect example, the paradigm of shitty reporting. Terrible beltway reporting, both sidesing stupidity. Yes. And I don't know where we're going to turn to now.
I don't know what
you're for an example of what not to do. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. You're going to be lost without him. I know, you personally.
I am.
What will Ivanka do?
I'm sure she'll have her puff pieces. I think
somebody will be there for her. Yeah.
So we want to say, heading into the show, before we start our 5 topics, we want to thank everybody who joined, because we now have membership tiers, and and thank you to everybody who joined. We're going to read everybody's name later on the announcements part. It's going to be like Magic Garden. We're going to do that thing, the Magic Garden did, and we really appreciate it. If you are watching the show, please subscribe to the show. Subscribing to our channel is free and takes like 2 seconds. So we would appreciate you doing that. And if you would like to join our membership tiers, please do. It'd be great.
Yeah, they start at $1.99. So it's easy. It supports us, which is great.
It does. It supports us. It supports Chunk, the whole thing.
It supports Chunk. Okay. All right. Should we just dive in? I mean, this is we got a heck of a show here tonight. It is
let's dive
very cohesive. So I think we should just dive into our topics.
Okay.
You're going to have to kind of lead the way because I have been kicked out of administrative controls. We don't know why. I can't see anything, but I can see the ticker tape. So I know that you're going to kick us off here.
You can't see the ticker tape.
I can't see that. That's
you can. Okay.
I can't see.
I was just saying, I think everybody can see the ticker tape.
I hope so. All right, hang on. We've got
the Russians were never spying on us.
8 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to do 8 minutes. Okay. I'm on the clock. 8 minutes. This topic is called Send in the Clowns. The big news, I guess, of this last week was the sort of stupidity Nazi summit, or series of them that have occurred, where Kanye West and presumptive presidential candidate Kanye West and his communications guy Nick Fuentes, this Groyper Nazi,
and Milo,
right, that guy,
campaign manager,
the campaign manager. So like 3 like horrible humans, go to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. And then go on Alex Jones and Kanye, just in a very, I think, performative way, does not just sort of doubles down on his Hitlerphilia, and it's really creepy and weird. And I'm watching this, and before we get into this, let's Kanye West. Okay, in his good days, back when he was still a musician that everybody liked.
Okay,
this is from a song. These are some lyrics from a song of his. I'm just
these are genius lyrics. Are we going? This is a genius.
Just in case people don't know who he is. I'm not making this up. This is from Dark Twisted Fantasy, which came out when my kids were little. Okay. Let's see.
We're ready.
That motherfucker. Well, what you gonna do now? Whatever ever I want to do. Gosh, it's cool now. No, I'm gonna do. It's the new now. Think you motherfuckers really, really need to cool out because you never get on top off this. So, mommy, best advice is just get on top of this. Have you ever had sex with a pharaoh? Put the pussy in a sarcophagus. Now she claims that I bruised her esophagus. Head of the class, and she just won a swallow ship. I'm living in the future, so the present is my past. My presence is a present. Kiss my ass. That's when he was considered a genius. Okay.
Well, I'm bowled over by the insight and the depth.
That's when he was
and good. The social consciousness.
Right. Yeah. The pro-women approach. But so I'm watching this and I can't get over how fucking dumb it all is that the national discourse. This is where we're at. We're at these guys and fucking Herschel Walker. That's it. And the stupidest, most artless, your phrase. And I thought back and it's like Trump did this. This is a manifestation of Trump and his, war on expertise, war on intellect, war on brains. And when you get rid of all the people with expertise and all the people who know what the fuck they're doing, in that last 6 months of the Trump, era, during the insurrection time, anybody that was even remotely competent was gone. Jared was God knows where, in the shower, handing out pardons, right? The only people that knew what they were doing were the Opus Dei crew. You can go pick them out one by one. Yeah. Everybody else, it was like Mark Meadows, who's so dumb he can't even do voter fraud. He can't even fake an address to vote.
Can't even get something bigger than a trailer.
He's that dumb. And the result is Cassidy Hutchinson, who was like 25, was literally running the fucking country for 6 months.
Yeah.
And we're lucky we had her, honestly.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. You get, and now the experts are gone. All the your father's Republicans, they're all gone. And what's left of the party is Three Toes and Bobo and Paul Gosar and these weirdo insurrectionists and Kevin McCarthy, who's a fucking moron and knew way back in 2015 that Trump was mixed up with Putin and didn't care. Yeah. Said nice things after the insurrection and then immediately flew to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. And, he's going to have to corral these people. And they're all morons and maniacs and just clowns. The whole thing has become a clown show. And when you have a clown show, what happens is eventually the Nazis show up because they're all clowns too. I mean, you remember how Breaking Bad ended, right? Walter White had a very nice business model. He had Mike, who knew everything, was very competent. But no, Walter White couldn't coexist with Mike. His ego was too big. So he killed Mike. And what happened to Walter White? He went in league with Nazis and he went down in a hail of gunfire. That's what happened. Nazis aren't competent. If they were competent, they wouldn't be Nazis. They would be, doing something else. These guys are not, they're not top of the game. And when you throw out everybody with expertise or with, competence or honor, what you have left is morons, clowns, and Nazis and guys cosplaying as Nazis. Because is Kanye West really a Nazi? I feel like he's saying it to be but it doesn't make sense. There's this thing going on, and I don't know what it is, but it's fucking awful.
No, they're normalizing. They're trying to normalize Hitler. Specifically saying that. Specifically evoking Hitler and trying to normalize it and say there were good things. And this started with, it's been going on trickly for a while, but it started blatantly out in the open with very fine people. With Trump coming out, with the president of the United States coming out and saying the Nazis there's fine people in that bunch. Yeah. Right. That was it. That was like the false equivalency of, there's good stuff too. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Don't, even though the baby has been undergoing a lot of human experimentation and God only knows what else, and they're probably the Nazis are gonna end up eating it. Don't throw it out, right? There's got to be some good we can see. It's the both sidesism, the eventual endpoint of it as well. And I'm tired of feeling like we can't call it out. I'm tired of, and I've been not that quiet. So, but it's like, oh, don't use that word. Oh, don't say that. Oh, if you call all of them that, they'll love it. What? No. This is what's happening. And because the party itself won't push back, it's left to us, and then we get attacked. And I'm sick of that too. It's okay to have a moral line.
And it's okay for the moral line to be drawn at Nazi.
It's okay.
That shouldn't be controversial.
Yeah. So, whatever. Fuck all these people. I don't know what else to say. I've had it. I do think that there's a part of it that it is also about just the idiocy that's been going on and the dumbing down of America that has been actually a concerted effort by one party, while pointing all fingers at another, of just making sure that enough of a mass number of Americans are just so ignorant that they think they can do these jobs, and government is evil. So, and I could be, I remember when Trump got in, right? They're so fucking dumb. They elected this guy, right, to begin with, who had no expertise, to the most challenging, highest stakes, most difficult, requiring the highest degree of expertise job on the fucking planet. I'm sorry, it is. The president of the United States is the hardest goddamn job there is. And they handed it to a clown.
Yeah.
And a part of that was just, government, go show him. It was that owning the libs crap, right? Or, we'll show you. And a big part of it also was, even for him, they saw Barack Obama as president and thought, well, if he can do that job, anybody can do that job. I can do that job. And so there was a wish fulfillment that happened with giving a totally unqualified buffoon the office of the presidency, of like, we could do this. If everyone just believed in us, we could do this. I could do any job. These are people who think they can do anything. They think they fucking understand vaccines, for Christ's sakes, and they can be their own doctors. Let's inject bleach. Ugh, that'll work. Ugh. Who are you to tell me? I don't know anything. So it's both, right? It's both a cynical play and unqualified people for the point of deconstructing the administrative state and shitting on all that is about our government, and because other people now of different colors and women also are engaged and want to be part of this democratic experiment, right? This is experiment in democracy and self-governance. So they don't want those people, so let's just tear the whole thing down. So part of it's cynical, and then a part of it is wish fulfillment. Part of it is just these people think they can do whatever it is they feel in their balls they can do, right? I'm like, it's not their brains. It's coming from somewhere else. I just had it. All right, that's it. I don't need anymore.
Next topic.
Ugh.
I did not see that coming. Actually, yes, I did. So, this Nazi stuff has been percolating for years, and you put out a thread today on the moribund website known as Twitter, which was actually a retweet of something you tweeted many years ago, talking about the Nazi signifiers that had been permeating the culture. And it reminded me, there was something on Mastodon that I read that I can't find it, of course. So I'm going to apologize for whoever it was that posted this, because it wasn't someone I knew. It was and it was longer than I was used to. And it was like a story about a bartender, and this guy was in the bar, and it was a quiet night, and he observed a guy walked in, sat down, the bartender went up to him, and the guy asked for a drink, and the bartender said, "Get the fuck out of here." And the guy said, "Well, why?" He was trying to be all nice, and the bartender's like, "No, out. Now, out." And the guy said, "Why did you do that?" And he said he had some weird tattoos or whatever it was. He's like, that guy was a Nazi. And how it starts is they send the nice Nazi in, and he seems fine, and you don't really realize it. And then he brings his friend who's also okay. And the next thing you know, you're in a fucking Nazi bar.
That's right.
You can't, and it's too late. You have to nip it in the bud. So these signifiers are important. So tell everybody about these things, these 14.
Yeah. So, listen, this has been a long, hard slog of mine and other people to get the other democracy forward, aware, large accounts and people in places of power and administration and people even within a party, people in journalists in the news who got all kind of cornered off into QAnon and just trying to understand it that way, to get what actually has been going on that's actually dangerous. Not that QAnon isn't dangerous and it's a psyop and all that stuff. It's not that. And that, of course, the Nazis infest that, and that, because they were starting it, right? The fascists started that. But it's also a distraction in a lot of ways with some really sinister stuff that was going on with the last administration and putting out literal, and everyone calls them dog whistles. They're not, they're symbols and they're signals. It's coded language that's not so hard to understand, that comes out of the neo-Nazi movement in America and is global as well, is connected to different sort of European groups and whatnot. So the big one is 1488, those numbers put together. So it's 14 stands for the 14 words that a real prominent Nazi came up with in prison, actually, and he wrote this sort of thing, but that's the Great Replacement theory encapsulated in 14 words, and so it became known as 14 words. I'm not going to repeat them, guys, so sorry. I won't do that, but just know that that number 14, that's what it's signifying for, is this idea that immigrants are coming to America, they're coming here to have their children, those children are going to replace white children. And so the white people better start getting busy and making babies, get married. Remember this? Settle down, guys. We learned that it's time to settle down and start having babies. We're hearing that out of Fox News, Jesse Walters. It's all part of this thing, right? Of, not just taming women domestically, which is how it was framed there, but it's really about this fear that we're going to be replaced and outnumbered, which started back in the days of Rush Limbaugh, when Rush Limbaugh was floating this in early radio days of, the white people are going to be in a minority soon. And, they, meaning people with even very American, but not of white European descent, are going to outnumber. And we can't let that happen to our country. And it's just been this fear mongering. It's always been coded. They always speak in those dog whistles when it comes to being media personalities on Fox News or conservative radio. But the neo-Nazis themselves speak in numbers and can put codes out in symbols. So 1488 is a big one. That's what the 14 stands for. 88 stands for Heil Hitler. So H is the eighth letter in the alphabet. So it's HH, 88, Heil Hitler. Sometimes you'll see a 1, 8, and 18. That's for Adolf Hitler, but mostly it's 88. And so 88 can stand on its own, just as 14 can stand on its own. And when you put it together, it's an undeniable symbol. It's a random number. There's no way that number could ever signify anything other than this language. You might as well fly a swastika over the Capitol building when we're talking about both the former administration, Trump's administration, and out of the White House was constantly using these numbers, some combination of them in everything. And then when called out about it on extremist experts, talk about killing people with expertise, there was all this denial. And we were called conspiracy theorists. You guys it sounds like QAnon of the left. You got to understand how you sound. And I was like, I don't care how I sound. You're fucking ignorant of a very basic communication code in very dangerous neo-Nazi and pro-white supremacist militia groups, people who are armed, people who do things like plot a fucking insurrection. This is what's been going on forever. And the fact that everyone has chosen to just kind of be ignorant of it and say, it's just you being conspiracy theorists, when it's like, no, actually, if you just look at it, it's not a conspiracy. This is how they talk. They talk this way and in these codes, so they don't get called out because you choose to remain ignorant and not learn this. That is if there's anything I can shake people to get, it is that. There's also other symbols other than the swastika, because obviously you can't fly a swastika. So what can you do? You can pull other symbols that were used even on like signifiers and divisions. of Nazis, real Nazis, Hitler's Nazis in the era of Nazi. There was different divisions of the military and military intelligence, guys that were guards at the camps. And so there are other insignia that they use, not just the swastika. And so those insignia have also been adopted. They become tattooed. They become the CPAC stage, if everybody remembers that. And then there's the thing that looks like an S, right? Or lightning bolt. That's another symbol. You see that's a very common tattoo. And we saw those tattoos, those symbols all over the Trump administration. This is the Nazi that was let into the bar. That was our White House, our administration, was Trump. He is. I'm sorry. And his son has been, the oldest one that named after him, has been one of the worst purveyors of this. Now, in terms of sending things out on Twitter. Now, Twitter itself, because a big part of Twitter evolved out of this sort of chat board culture. And those people still want their chat board, and they're pissed that they got kicked off. Now, when I say chat board, I'm talking about something like 4chan, and specifically within 4chan, and there's Reddit and there's other things. There was something called the B Room, where Anonymous actually came out of, because you would post there only anonymously. And these are people who had really into tech stuff and really into like being subversive in that way, or just sort of out of mainstream culture. And a lot of folks, this is back in the early aughts, it got really proliferated. A lot of this was white young men, it just was, that were also overlapped with the gaming community. And they would just spend hours and hours and hours on these chat boards. Well, when Twitter evolved, it was like, oh, this is our chat board. And they literally only see Twitter as a chat board. It doesn't matter that heads of states have accounts. It doesn't matter. We can call it the town square all we want. These folks, and I'm not blaming it only on them, but the Nazis that became attracted to that anonymous environment where you could post swastikas and you could do all kinds of stuff because of this free speech, nothing's off limit kind of environment that the chat boards were. They got really, really, these are people who have grievance to begin with, or they wouldn't be extremists. And they got really pissed off that they got kicked off of their chat board known as Twitter, really angry. And so Elon has just let them all back in. And this is a huge triumph, because Elon also sees Twitter as a chat board. And it's something, if you don't understand that culture, that's going to seem weird to you and wrong to you, because you're coming at Twitter something like, oh, this is where I connect with my friends. That's not why they come to it. That's not what they're doing. They're radicalizing people. They're radicalizing themselves. They're throwing the spider in the tent of girls as a 13-year-old boy going, hee, 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 as everybody screams, and probably a rattlesnake, and somebody dies, and they're like, well, that was only irony. We were just being ironic. That's where all of that shit comes from. That's where this symbol comes from. The OK symbol comes from, right? Of everybody standing up behind the podium. That's where all those characters come from. That's where Jack Posobiec comes from. That's where this Milo. They all came out of this culture that Breitbart also helped cultivate under Steve Bannon. And they became fused in with Junior as part of the Trump campaign in 2015 and 2016. And then they got kicked off Twitter. And now their meme lord has acquired Twitter for them. He really did acquire it for them. So, of course, he's letting them back on. So where I'm going with all this is when you see the other supposed genius with absolutely no evidence of this man's intellect whatsoever in existence, he's a fraud on every level, as people are now finally seeing. So this other sort of, I'm going to call myself a genius because I'm a manic, probably drug addict, out of control personality, narcissist to extreme. And I just feel that way about myself because I feel so amazing about myself that I must be a fucking genius, and needs to get everyone else invested in this idea that I'm a genius and I'm going to save free speech. When he then not only lets those Nazis back on, but what was it, 2 days ago, starts posting the number 88.
Yep.
Wait for 88 million. 88. He is sending a signal to these people. He thinks it's funny. They're very serious. They're very serious. The Nazis know he's their boy, just like they knew Trump was their boy when he said shit like, very fine people on both sides of Charlottesville. So this is what's happening. I don't know what else I can do. I know Ben Collins had this thing like, what am I doing wrong? Ben Collins, God bless him, came years late to this because he got put on it as part of his job. And he's done a great job. But those of us who have been here even longer, I don't have any answers for you, Ben Collins. I don't know what it's going to take to get people to understand that there's a coded language and symbols that are about real fascism and real Nazism that for 4 years came right out of the White House. And all of those characters who helped foster all of that coming from there are still free, alive, very well, and they have just been handed the biggest goddamn platform on the planet for spreading hate and radicalizing more people into their extremist movement. I don't know what to say to get people to take it seriously and stop attacking the folks that are coming out and saying, this is what is going on. And we've been saying it for years now. And I'm tired of being called a conspiracy theorist. I'm tired of being told I sound like Blue Anon. I'm tired of it all. There's going to be now bloodshed. And that also is something that we all could see coming. That's something we could all see coming. Right. And so we're going to just have to go through this moment together, everybody, and have the folks that have the big platforms, the folks that have the news shows, the folks that have political jobs because we're elected officials, the people with power to sit there and shrug and say, we don't know how we got here. I just, again, I'm in that place of like, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. Wake the fuck up.
All right. It's so weird that a guy that grew up as a huge beneficiary of an apartheid state would be sympathetic to Nazis. I mean, really, who would have thought, you know? So crazy. Unbelievable. Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I want to say that I'm going to give a shout out to my buddy, Luke O'Brien, too. My relationship started with Luke after he wrote The Making of American Nazi about Andrew Anglin, who was just let back on Twitter today by Elon Musk. Everybody needs to go and read that. I think he wrote it in 2016, 2017. And then he and I connected because I was following the Russian mafia, the mobsters and the oligarchs connected into, and we were finding in the Nazi Bitcoin wallets a bunch of Kremlin fucking money. So shout out to Luke for always being there. What he's been through, what he's been put through is, I mean, I don't know how he keeps doing his job. I really don't, but he's amazing. So I love him to pieces. I know a lot about what I know because of Luke. If you want to gain expertise, go find an expert and let them mentor you.
You mean we shouldn't just let Kanye West come in with his mask on and say whatever comes to mind? I thought that was how we should learn stuff.
I almost had some yoo-hoo tonight, but instead I'm having my water.
I didn't watch that whole thing. Okay, that was good. Nay, is it time for karaoke?
Yeah, imagine that. It's karaoke time.
Okay, everybody, karaoke time. In GOP, where lies are king, when Trump meets Ye, the truth comes out.
There's a lot of things that I love about Hitler.
When your boys on Fox News want to kill all the Jews, you're a Nazi. When your girls slander gays and plant bombs for 6J, you're a Nazi. Ye will tweet DEFCON 3, Fuentes will agree, and you'll screech, get George Soros. Incels cry, why oh why oh why, even when I try, can't I find the clitoris? When Elon makes you drool more than 2,000 mules, you're a Nazi. When you worship a man who puts ketchup on Spam, you're in deep. When
to praise Hitler's acts, but you've been fucking hacked since Benghazi. Scusa me, but you see it's the same GOP. You're now Nazis. Oh, you're now Nazis.
They showed up in Charlottesville. Excuse me, to protest. Excuse me, they didn't make themselves sound as good. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Whoa. Yeah. That was both funny and really not funny at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See all those 1488s? Those 1488s, you had a lot of them to go on.
I did. I actually did not have. I thought about putting up a card in there too of like, I ran out of space to put all of the examples of those numbers coming out and the symbols coming out of the White House during the Trump era. It just was endless. It was an endless stream. Always, hey, we raised $88 million, right? When does this guy talk something down? If it really had been the number 88 exact million dollars that they had raised, don't you think he would have just lied and said, I raised 100 million? Why would he do that? Hey, it's 88. What was another one? Oh, 88 miles of border wall. 88 miles. Really? 88 miles. Not 87? Not 89 and a half? You're going to go 88. Not 90? Not 120? Not 150? Not 300? Why not 300? That's like you can put a cartoon on that. Oh, my clitoris. Yeah. I spelled clitoris wrong 3 times. And so we just left it in there because everything was wrong about it. I just was going so fast on it. So we just left it misspelled for fun.
Yeah. We can't spell it. They can't find it. I think it's better to.
Well, I wanted it to look like Saurus. And then it was like, and then my finger hit the wrong fucking thing. And I was trying to make it go fast because I was doing all this other
I was literally uploading that video while the intro to the show was
no, you have no idea, everybody.
Yeah, so.
That took
okay, enough inside baseball. Our guest is still here, has not run for the hills, which is always a good sign. She is a psychotherapist with 30 years of experience. She's worked especially with victims and perpetrators of violent crime and the criminally insane. She was a guest on my podcast, My Prevail podcast. She's the author of a great book called The Minds of Mass Killers, Understanding, Interrupting, Pathways to Violence, and the editor of the forthcoming Wounded, Forgotten Survivors of Gun Violence, with a foreword by Gabby Giffords. Shavaun Scott, how are you? Welcome to
I am having a great time so far. Okay, I'm good. Thank you, guys.
As you've seen, it's okay to swear and to drink.
Oh my God, I get to drink. I have my water. Yeah. And Shavaun and I didn't get to meet that much because I'm like dealing with this video. So this is your introduction to me, is this crazy video. So I look forward to getting to know you.
I love it.
Next 15, 20 minutes here. But I have read your work. I looked at your articles. I looked at your books. And I think what your focus is so very important. And I'm just thrilled that you're with us.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'd love to hear you give a summary, if you want, just to sort of introduce yourself, even though, Greg, you did a good introduction of what your expertise is, and where it's found its moment at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, I have been a therapist since 1991. So that's like way longer than I'm dating myself by even saying how many years I've been a therapist. But I've worked predominantly with victims in private practice and in certain governmental agencies. But I've also had long stints where I've worked with perpetrators in multidisciplinary treatment teams with people who have committed murder and mass killings and other kinds of violent crime. So I know a little bit more about it, probably than your average person in the population. And what I do when I'm upset about something is I write. And after the millionth mass killing back in 2019 that I've been following year after year after year, I sat down and just started writing, and that turned into a book. And, needless to say, there are more books in the pipeline because the problem is not getting better. And it's just my passion. I like to think that we can all make a difference. We can make the world a better place, but we have to start with understanding the problem. And from my point of view, I seem to know a lot more about what causes people to do these sorts of things and what we can do to diminish the problem or eliminate the problem ideally. And so that's sort of like my whole point right now.
Okay. So help us with that a little bit. Do you mind? I have one question maybe to kick you off with, and I hope it doesn't throw you off track. But my question is, there's been this thinking with the mass killers, especially the young men and school shooters, that we don't say their names and we know nothing about them and we just label them monsters and don't, because like with what we just talked about with extremism, you don't want something catching on. You don't want to lionize people or put
Right.
out there for other folks that are disturbed in some way or radicalized in some way to latch onto. What do you think of that? Because I feel like I'm in a controversial space with saying I actually think, especially with the school shooters, these are kids, and maybe we need to see what's going on in their home, and maybe we need to know about their their mental diagnoses if there are some, and
Totally.
and maybe we need to see where they what happened to them other than just, oh, they were bullied, or oh, they're just weird
Right.
lovers, or they've always been odd. Maybe something happened to them to radicalize them into a moment of going kinetic with their violent fantasies.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. If we're going to look at stopping a problem, we have to look at what is creating the problem. So we have to deconstruct the psychology. Who are these folks? What are the factors that cause them to do this? There's a lot of myths in the media, one of them being that they were all bullied and this is all about retribution against the people who bullied them. That's completely a myth. But we do need to understand them and understand the factors. And that's the point of the book, The Minds of Mass Killers, is to understand so that we can interrupt those pathways, because it is very clear if you study the data and study the research, we know what these factors are. They're complicated, but we do know. It's not a mystery. But on the other hand, we have to look at the way we report about them, because we also know very clearly that they study each other, that the kinds of news coverage sometimes is sort of aggrandizing, and it makes them look like they're these kind of superstar action movie heroes, and that's an image that they fixate on and they copy each other. So we want to be aware of that and not feed into this anti-hero kind of BS persona thing that gets going in the media sometimes. There are still communities online that are dedicated to sort of lionizing the Columbine killers.
Yeah.
And
Backwards.
yeah, and so we don't want to feed into that, but at the other extreme, we certainly do need to understand it just from a public health perspective. You know, how do we stop it if we don't understand it? So that's my line too, but also understanding that anything we put out there that we think is horrible, there are going to be people watching it that are, you know, personality disordered, and they're going, oh, gee, this is really cool. I want to copy this. So it's kind of, we're walking this line with how do we get information out there, but not put this out there as something that other people are going to want to copy.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned the factors, and I know you wrote about this in your book, but what are they? I mean, not that we want to, you know, go into a long thing, but what are some of the factors to look for so people can know, you know, what to see and what to spot? What are the commonalities?
Well, you know, the first category, I say the two Ps. Is it somebody who's psychotic, which is only 10% of them are psychotic. That means they're mentally ill. They have a brain disorder. We do need to know how to spot the signs of a person that's psychotic, because if they get medication, they're not psychotic anymore. And then you've prevented all kinds of terrible things, right? So that's one category, but that's not most of them. Most of them have personality pathologies. And the personality 3 traits that we see most commonly are paranoia. It's somebody who's blaming other people, other racial groups, other ethnic groups, or women. They're blaming them for the fact that they have personal problems. The second feature is narcissism. It's somebody that wants to be famous, that is very self-aggrandizing, and they're motivated to make a name for themselves and go down in history. And then the third category is psychopathy. So it's a person who has no conscience. They're capable of extreme cruelty. And, so when you put those three things together, those are the qualities that put someone in the danger zone. And then, of course, the red flags that we recognize are somebody who's fascinated with other mass killers, somebody who's making social media posts about someday I'm going to get retribution, or, they're making racist threats. Somebody who's posting things about women, the leakage that we talk about. So all these various things, if it's a kid, if they're killing animals, if they're fascinated with death, if they're fascinated with Nazis, things that parents need to look for. Obviously, I can spend a lot of time going into all that. But the main thing is, if you see something that looks off, that looks strange, we're now kind of deconstructing what just happened at Walmart. In Chesapeake, Virginia. Everybody is saying, we mentioned that this guy was weird. We mentioned that he was paranoid. We mentioned that we felt threatened by him. Nobody did anything. We need to take this seriously, and we need to pay attention. And if you see something, say something, and then people in authority need to act on it. This is a real thing. It's happening more and more. So we need to pay attention.
So is that cluster A or cluster B personality disorder, or both?
Primarily cluster B, although there's a little bit of cluster A with the paranoid. So it's kind of this interesting mix of the psychopathy, the narcissism from cluster B, and the paranoia from cluster A. And it's a really distinctive type of
Is borderline in there as well?
Borderline is typically not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I asked that, everybody, so everybody can know and you can know, because I actually happen to be working on a project right now that it's just wrapping it up, and it'll be a new podcast that gets launched probably second quarter next year, and it's going to be a new series, and it's, without giving too much away, it's around stalking, and it seems to me that there's a lot of overlap in what you just described and what I looked at for how you're describing mass killers with the profile of stalkers. And I mean severe stalkers, but what we're seeing is is it possible to cultivate, is it just that the internet and these social media apps are driving that people who would normally be disparate and all over the place towards one another? Or are we actually, radicalizing people into and accentuating the personality disorder, like what we saw with Kiwi Farms and what we saw, with people kind of going in there thinking it's fun, getting to a point where they feel these platforms allow them to really detach from the fact that they're actually talking about a human being and going after a human being and turn it into sport. Obviously, you have to have a predilection to all of that, but I'm just wondering, are we cooking up cluster Bs? Is my question.
I think, we're amplifying it. We're amplifying it. And maybe somebody, we would look back, in the past and say somebody was odd, they were different, they had these tendencies. But now with the internet connectivity and the way that people amplify these things in groups and they normalize it, I do think we're cooking it up, and it's becoming a way to, okay, here I've got these thoughts and feelings, and rather than being talked out of it, you're being talked into it.
There you go. And it seems that there has to be a grievance, right? That's almost the starting point, like the touchstone of some kind of perception that you're wronged or cheated out of something that you should have, or someone else has something. It's the same. We see the same with radicalization. It always starts with this amplifying grievance or giving people a reason why they're not as successful as they thought. Not that they have to evolve or change or grow, or it's just fucking hard out there, but take a shower, put on a clean shirt and ask a girl out for a date. Like, it's hard. Instead of that, right? Instead of just like learning to listen and kind of having some manners and being interesting, it's easier that you can have a whole world now where you can just get reinforced on whatever your grievances of why you don't have something that somebody else has. And so, maybe you're entitled to just go take it from them,
Yeah.
even if that means their life.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And maybe in the past, somebody would be sort of socially isolated and struggling, but they would get out there and they would have to be mixing in more normal people, and they would learn some skills and they would improve. And now they're isolating and they're on the internet and they're being given more and more reasons why they should have the grievances. So the grievances are being fed, and then they're latching on to this violent ideology. The violent fantasies can become addicting in and of themselves. They gain a lot of pleasure, that little dopamine hit from the violent fantasies. And I think that's why we're seeing the escalation that we're seeing.
And for people who study the brain and how it works and how to sort of push people back and forth between their sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, it feels like it does feel like there's some bad actors out there that know how to radicalize and are in there intentionally just doing this to create chaos.
It sure feels that way. It sure feels that way. Yeah. And I mean, from everything that you've been talking about with our political system, it's the same thing. Yeah. It's like people are so easily manipulated. We don't like to think we are, but we really all are easily manipulated. And anger is addictive. And this, false reality, it's very easy to take vulnerable people and play games with them like that.
Yeah. So what would you say to parents? I think this is something that came up in the stalking stuff. There's a woman and she tweeted this recently, but it's sort of a thing in that community with experts of, everyone asks, how can I help my daughter avoid something like this? No one asks, how do I help my son not become a stalker? It's always like, how do I help the girl not be a victim, instead of what can I do with my son to make sure that he doesn't do this behavior? It's almost like parents can't wrap their minds around that or don't want to accept it. But then, you see the parents of these young men just in shock, right? Of like feeling so helpless. And so it just destroys everybody's life. It just destroys everybody's life. There was a young man that was a mass killer. He killed a family of his girlfriend and was mowing swastikas in people's lawns beforehand. And his mom is actually, quite a sweet woman, but she didn't know what she could do to stop.
Yeah. I think, number one,
to parents about this.
Oh yeah, all the time. I think that it starts with that basic attunement. Know your kid, be attuned to where your kid's at emotionally. If your kid is suffering, depressed, lonely, unhappy, not fitting in socially, let's catch that at 5 or 6, not at 10 or 12 or 15, catch it early. It doesn't necessarily mean that they need mental health treatment, but sometimes they do, and as a therapist, I know we can do a lot more with a 5-year-old than we can at 15. Usually by that time, the problems have gotten much worse. We need more mental health support in schools. Only 38% of our schools have access to a mental health counselor. And this doesn't mean that people are mentally ill, but it does mean sometimes they need social coaching, they need support. The more that kids are involved in healthy pro-social activities and they're not isolating at home, they're not online, the better. And again, I raised a bunch of kids in the 90s, and I know how hard it is to be a working parent, and it's so easy to just let them go in their rooms and be online, or they're playing video games, at least they're not out partying or whatever, they're safe at home. A lot of kids are going into very dangerous places online. And I always say, a happy, well-adjusted person does not see mass murder as a solution to their personal problems. And so the more we can see that our kids are living rich lives, that we're emotionally attuned to them, that they have supportive friends, and sometimes that takes a lot of effort.
It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it is hard.
It takes a lot of work, and some of us have neurodiverse children, and it takes even more. Right? It takes even more. And just to circle it back around to a lawn, because why not? It's like Greg and I had a conversation the other day of like, I can't have it be that he's using his neurodiversity as this sort of shield and people making excuses for him of that. For that, it's just sort of like, I also want to look at the parents of like, you just don't know how hard it is. it's so hard to be a parent anyway. When you put that kind of social barrier and the difficulties and challenges on top of all of that, the demands on the parents are through the roof. And we can all just let our kids babysit themselves with games just so you have time to take a shower, right? It's like, it's literally gets to that point, depending on the age of your child. When they're young, it's really hard. Just the only parents with, and I know that we've got some in our audience, they know what I'm talking about. But you can't, especially with that population, it's so vulnerable, vulnerable. We just, unfortunately, you gotta find the time and create an activity offline.
It's so important. And that's, I think that I actually have a lot of clients right now who are therapists who treat children, who are in therapy about their distress over their difficulty impacting this problem because they can't get parents to get the kids offline, and it's like, how do we combat the power of the internet right now? And it doesn't mean that the internet in and of itself is a terrible, awful, bad thing. Obviously, we're all using it. But when kids who don't have that prefrontal cortex wisdom and development, and they can't, that's why they have parents, we've got to support them, and we've got to help them get engaged in real life in healthy activities, whatever that is, whatever it looks like.
Animals are very helpful.
That's my survival strategy.
They're real helpful. And our kids they know what they're interested in. It's just about putting whatever you can behind them to support them and push those interests. So
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
I was reacting before, by the way, because almost on cue, my kid is knocking at the door to come in. Like, I'm sure he's not watching this, but I think it was him. I don't think the other one would come in here while the door is closed. I wanted to ask you, Shavaun, because we were talking about this before we started the show offline. You have patients who have done these horrible things, and you must have to take on a lot of this pain and suffering and hear a lot of horrible things, and not to compare what you do to what we do, but it's still a lot of processing of bad shit. And the people watching this show, I think, watch the show to help process the bad. We all help process the bad shit together.
Try to have a moment together at the end of the week to just decompress.
Marie, he does not want food. I fed him right before the show. Okay. But what I'm curious about is what do you do to keep sane, to sort of, get rid of all the bad feelings and defrag?
One thing, realistically, it is right, because I end up with so much in my head, and it's particularly pressuring to me when I know other people don't get it. And so it's like I write rather compulsively, that's why I've always got a book in the works. I'm writing. But, I'm a big believer in hot baths, candlelight, and lots of animals. I'm down to 3 cats and 1 dog now. I need at least 1 more dog, and I'd love some baby goats. My husband keeps saying no more. I live in the forest. I love nature. So as much as I can get outdoors and hike in the forest, Oregon in the winter is not so lovely, but the rest of the year, I'm a big believer in trying to find whatever it is for each of us that helps us kind of down-regulate the nervous system, staying in touch with that, because it's really easy when you are in touch with, the ugly parts of the world to become sick ourselves. And I've struggled with that for years. So I had fantasies for a long time of just quitting and becoming a hairstylist, just give people fun color and it would feel good at the end of the day.
I might open a bakery, and so we can go next door to one another.
I'll send people to your bakery. You let them, I'll do
bread.
the hair.
Let's do that.
I don't think I have a job like that I could do. I don't know. Does anyone want to pay to read reviews of crappy TV shows? I don't know. Probably not. I think it's all a lost cause. Let's move to the next topic, even though
it's so great to have you. Before
she's going to stay. For the next
She's going to stay, but I just want to remind everyone before you go, because to close out this segment, where your books, where they can find you, all of that.
Probably the easiest place is just go to my website. It's ShavaunScott.com. That's SHAVAUN Scott.com, and the books are listed there, and a bunch of other stuff I write. So more every week, right?
I
No
love it.
shortage of things to write about.
If
Now-
anyone, because my take is off. If anyone in our audience wants to go to grab the link to Shavaun's site and then plop it in the comments, that would be great.
I want to also say, having read the book is your book is really good, and it's not, there is this tendency, I think, to say, oh my God, gun, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to process it. I do that. I'm like, I can't, but we have to. And I think your book is not something that's hard to read.
Oh, good.
It's like, it's very accessible. It's useful. And I encourage everybody to check it out. I think you did a really good job with taking something that's horrible that nobody wants to think about and writing it in such a way that's engaging and not so horrible that you just want to curl up and you read it and you think, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense. I know what to do. You walk away from it, reading it, having learned stuff, and feel like maybe you can contribute something to.
Thank you. That was the goal.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did a great job with it. It's a wonderful book. So I encourage people to check it out. Here we go.
Yay, we're so happy to have you here. Okay, we're going to set the timer now.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. There's True Player,
Yeah,
always.
thanks, True Player.
The greatest.
Okay. So let me hide this. Okay. Targets. This Club Q thing happened, and it feels like, just to wrap everything up, the theme of this show is Nazis, I guess, and violence. Fun. It's a fun topic. This is a fun one. But one of the things that these people do, these fascists do, is that they target vulnerable populations, right? And we're seeing more and more of that. Obviously, the anti-Semitism, because of Kanye this week, has been, at the fore. But we have also, the rank misogyny of the Dobbs decision, which is really just about killing women. I mean, that's what it's about. It's horrifying. The governors of places like Texas and Mississippi should be ashamed of themselves. That sort of thing is horrifying. You have extreme homophobia all the time. And especially within the LGBTQ community, you have this real phobia and hatred towards the trans population. And I feel like this Club Q shootings, this rampage that this guy went on, was a target at that. And this is something that Republicans, like politicians, Boebert was out front and center saying, go to church, not drag shows, or whatever she said. And drag shows, okay, I should use both hands. Drag is it's a dog whistle. When they say drag, they don't mean RuPaul's TV show. They mean trans people. That's what they mean when they say that, I think. So they're equating it with something that's immoral, that's wrong, that's evil, and that needs to be exterminated. I mean, the laws that are going on in Texas right now, when you have parents of trans kids who are trying to get them gender affirming healthcare being called into CPS, to Child Protective Services, is fucking horrifying. And I just wanted to call this out. And I wonder, Shavaun, if do you see any connection with the people that are doing the violence and this kind of rise of vulnerable targets?
Yeah, I think there's definitely the relationship between, if you want to talk about the stochastic terrorism aspect of it, the verbiage that gets going totally influences people's behavior, and people that are angry and they're pumped up and they're just looking for a target. And it gets into this, dehumanizing of another group of people, and being made to feel that you're self-righteous or that you're doing, God's work or whatever by attacking these folks. The more and more that we hear this kind of rhetoric, particularly when it's coming from authority figures and supposedly legitimately elected representatives in the government, I mean, it's scary. It's really scary. Tying it back in with how, the Nazis gained the power that they have. It all starts with the verbiage.
It does. It all starts with and that community wouldn't be a target. I think even with the online extremism, with the segment that we were talking about coming out of the chat boards and the gamers and all that,
Yeah.
unless there were sort of thought leaders, that there are recognized thought leaders for all these things that had, and some of them in our government, elected officials, that had turned the community on to this target, right?
Yeah.
As you said, pumped up. They pump them up to a particular target with a whole framework around it. This is why, this is the narrative, this is how we call what we're calling them, this is what we're going after them. If that wasn't happening, if there wasn't leadership, if there wasn't Pied Piper shit going on, the group would find something else. It's, you know, They always have women. They always have us to come after. So it's you can't separate that. You can't separate the radicalization aspect of it from the stochastic terror events. So what metaphor I use is for people to think of it, and Greg wanted me to share this again tonight. Think of an aspen forest of aspen trees, right? So for a very long time, people thought, you know, regular people or botanists even thought that the trees were all individual trees, you know, like an oak tree, put a seed in, an acorn, and boom, a tree comes up. And it was discovered that, you know, quite a while ago, but it was still discovered that, oh no, this is a different kind of organism, an aspen forest, aspen trees. There's actually one thing underneath the surface. You just can't see it. And the trees are sprouts, and they're just, you don't know where they're going to sprout up and when a tree is going to form. It might be over here. It might be right in front. It might be, you know, or and there's no telling when, right? They just sort of come. But it's the organism, the actual living organism that's growing and feeding and nourishing them is under the surface, and people can't see that. That's our hate ecosystem. Mm-hmm. It's there. It's nourishing all of this. And there's knowledge in there from the people who are the thought leaders in it. They understand this, many of them, the Mike Flynn's of the world, right? They get it, that if you just keep pumping into the discourse, you keep pumping these radicalizing frameworks, ways of thinking, targeted groups, and always putting it as a threat. There's some kind of threat. You better go, you know, oh my God, what are we going to do? Our country's at stake. Our children are at stake. Oh, our women are at stake. To where they don't know where or when, but probably someone's going to show up with an assault rifle at a pizza place. Right. It's just, that's the part of it that we kept calling lone wolves for so long. And those aren't lone wolves. They're connected to an ecosystem. We're just not concentrated on killing the ecosystem, which is what we actually should be doing, and focusing on that and isolating it, putting daylight on it, calling it out, so that these offshoots, right? These, I call them, it's like there's grenades all over this country, and you just don't know when the pins are going to come out of it. They were laid a long time ago. That's what this aspen, so mixing many metaphors together, but I think it's important to sort of talk about it and see it that way.
Very much.
And there's a big organism underneath all of this stuff that's connecting all of it.
Yeah, it's systemic. It's all connected.
Yeah.
We need some Roundup and some minesweepers. That's what we need.
Yes.
Metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically speaking.
You know, that is a really good metaphor for what it is. And I think, you know, this term stochastic, which I have for some reason, I have a problem saying it. I think as I'm thinking of it in my brain, I think it's almost like zombie terrorism, where it's like, you know what it's like? It's like in The Naked Gun, where, you know, in the movie The Naked Gun, where they hit the little button and then Reggie Jackson's like, suddenly, I must kill the queen. It's like that. It's like something, there's a button that's pressed and some rando is activated. And that's really how it works. It all goes back to The Naked Gun, which brings us back to the beginning of the thing about how everything has become really fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's how it goes. If we have to look to The Naked Gun, which begins, by the way, now that I'm thinking about it, the first scene before the credits roll in The Naked Gun is Frank Drebin at the meeting of all the international bad guys, beating the shit out of like the Ayatollah and Gorbachev, and all. He just kicks their ass, and it's great. It's really fun to watch now. You know,
let's talk about wish fulfillment. Yeah,
I know, right? Couldn't you see like, and he's old too. He's got like white hair. It would be like Biden going in there and beating all these people up. You know, dark Brandon rises or something like that. That's it. Look at, we're good with this 8-minute thing, LV. We've become like, it's like The Stairway to Heaven is almost exactly 8 minutes long. We played the whole Stairway to Heaven, and here we are.
We're landing the planes. We're still over somehow, though. Because
we're always over, but it's okay. It's okay to be over. We're good with that. Yeah, Shavaun, do you have any closing thoughts that anything that we've said throughout the show that you want to comment on before we
it sounds so simple to fix it, doesn't it? It just sounds so simple, and I think my encouragement for people is to stay engaged and to know that no matter how small, everybody makes a difference. We can all do something, even if it's just keeping in connection with people who may be a little bit off. It's like, make those heart-to-heart connections. And I know so many people who say, oh, it's negative, I don't want to think about it, there's nothing I can do. That's a myth. There's something we can all do.
Very good. Starting with getting your book and having like a workbook. Maybe we need like a quick cheat sheet from you of like, do these
we do
things a day or 5 things a day.
Yeah.
And you'll be making a huge impact on tamping down the violent extremism that's popping.
I am very active on Facebook, and I try to post those things all the time. Here's some short snippets of things that everybody can do, things to think about. And I probably do need to condense the book a lot because most people don't want to read a book, right? So
we're all being talked into.
LB is all of our agents, by the way. That's how this works on this show. Yeah. She always has good ideas for this kind of stuff. But the book is really good, and it's not long. It's not a tedious book to read. It's not like Ulysses. It's a very good book. I encourage people to buy it. It's called The Minds of Mass Killers. So
and you're at Shavaun Scott on Twitter, however long Twitter.
Yeah, and on Facebook. Facebook will be around. Facebook isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm busy on Facebook. I get to write as much as I want on Facebook. So.
Shavaun, thanks so much for joining us tonight. It was great to see you.
Thank you, guys.
It was lovely having you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I always hate the goodbye part. I always feel like it's a party. I want everybody to stay until like tomorrow morning.
I know.
Yeah.
I love her. She's wonderful.
Right?
Yeah. That was great. I actually feel a little, even though it was a hard topic that we've been going through all this stuff, I feel a little better. Like she seems like there's someone who's solid that knows, maybe has some answers for some stuff.
She should be a therapist and help people get through.
She should be a therapist.
Yeah. She missed her. Oh, no, she didn't. Yeah. That is what she does. Okay, good. Yeah, that works. Okay, so now it's time for announcements.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Did I say it? Did I do it wrong? No, we're going to do announcements.
No, this is announcements. I don't know what announcements we have beyond our final segment. Do we have?
No, we have a lot of announcements.
Oh, okay, go for it.
It's a big announcement time because we want to thank everybody. We're terrible at this. People sign up. Like, we're very grateful to everybody who gives us the super stickers, and we're very grateful for everybody to sign up to join the membership tiers. And during the course of the show, sometimes like we've been on Stuttering John show, and he'll put on somebody's thing and say, "Oh, thanks," and he'll like break up the flow, and I'm not going to break up the flow of your rant to do that. It's just not, we're figuring this out as we go. So going forward, I think we're going to acknowledge the announcements section, which is going to be between 4 and 5, is where we will acknowledge, this stuff. So I want to, first of all, because we've been terrible at this, I want to acknowledge everybody, because I went and I wrote it all out by hand on this thing, lovingly by hand. All the people have given us super stickers since we started doing this. Whenever that was.
Gosh.
By the way, YouTube just tells us what to do. They're like, "Great, guys, do this now," and we're like, "Okay." YouTube has this down to a science. But so here's all the people. Sharon Diamond, cheap seats, please. No cheap seats. You're sitting in like the opera.
Sharon gets the VIP box. Sure.
Reality Wins, bless your heart. Valerie White, LA again. Bella L. Mavis M.O., which I think means Missouri, I think. Gene Schapp, Lee G, Wendy, Scott Samuelson, here tonight asking good questions. Kathy, Marie Cast. Bonsoir, Marie. It's very late there. I don't know. Does she sleep? I don't know. Jen Griffin, bless your heart. Maxwell, someone named Evil MP 000. I don't know what that's all about, but I don't know.
Thanks for the
man. or lady. I don't know. Anita Gregg 2010, Denham Smith, Julie Walsh, EOB 727, who I saw also sign up tonight.
Nice.
Chicago's Finest, Robert Reynolds, who is always great about saying, hit the that bell button. Nina Ruby, Kathy Williams, and then I want to acknowledge everybody who signed up for our membership tiers.
Yay!
Which is, again, it's a new thing. We do not know what we're doing. We're winging this. Okay,
it's true.
We have 3 tiers.
We know how to do a show. We're learning all this other stuff.
Yeah. The 8-year-old that watches YouTube all the time has this down, but we don't. So, that's okay. The first tier is called Open Bar, and that's $1.99 a month to join. So if you would like to join, we would love it. Donna McKee, we love you, Donna. Ordinance, I don't know who that is, but it's a cool name. Pam from Westmont, Peter Fry, Ivo Gatzinski, Stacy Liu. Thank you for the open bar. The bar is open. The
bar is open.
You know the Guided by Voices song? He says it's the club, but the bar is open. Okay.
The bar is open. Chuck drew it for us, and he opened the door.
Right? Don't you want to hang out in that bar?
I want to hang out in Chuck's bar. In fact,
Velvet Rope, $5.99 for Velvet Rope, and there's more stuff, and we'll figure out what those things are going to be as it develops. But there will be more stuff.
I promise we will have more stuff. Yeah.
Linnell Abbott, Ginny Weber, Paulina, Kathy Smithson, Bill Swan, Bonnie Gavel, Betsy McMullen, and our friend Says Dana, who does not need to sign up. Thank you for the Velvet Rope. You're in the Velvet Rope. And in the green room, which is where all the cool stuff goes down, we got Jen Griffin, we got Marie Cast, we got Reality Wins, because reality does win. So I want to say,
wins, Jen Griffin.
I'm saying it in a jokey voice, but we mean it. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And we appreciate you.
Oh, here's somebody says new member happened right now on the screen.
I know. It's Robert Reynolds. He's our buddy, man.
Reynolds.
He's been like bad. He's been saying, giving us advice on this YouTube thing from the gate.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
We appreciate it. I don't have controls, Greg. So you have to actually. You're going to be the one at the end of the show having to put people's comments.
I know. I already know. I know. That's okay. I can do it. We can do it.
This is why I drink the water and he drinks the Manhattan, is because I have to do post-show stuff. But now, so it's going to be Tipsy Greg doing.
By the way, 2 new jars of Lombardo cherries for my birthday, or just because. So I'm good now. This is like a year's supply of these things. It's really good.
Look at all.
Do we have any more? I love it. Do you have any announcements?
Fuck no. I'm so tired. I have no announcements.
You have no announcements? I want to plug, I think everybody watching this knows about my podcast, but I've had some pretty interesting guests. 2 weeks ago, I had Kristen Wood on, who's a former CIA analyst.
That was amazing.
That was a really great show, and I wasn't sure what to expect. And then I had all these questions, just basic things about like, hey, what's it like to work at, what is the CIA? How is it different from the NSA? Like, is it really evil? Like, no. And it turns out she's like, she did the daily briefings and stuff like that. And she gave the president's daily brief to Dick Cheney on the morning of 9/11, which is before the plane hit, but still. So she knows Cheney. So the whole thing was so interesting. She was great. I highly recommend that particular episode. Today I have Gloria M. Liu on my show talking about Adam Smith and geeking out and about Adam Smith and economics. And I'm trying to hang with this Harvard professor. So that was fun. He's like way smarter than me. And yeah.
Well, I have to say, I think everybody needs to catch up with White Lotus.
Oh yeah.
So that Shavaun, we can talk about
Shavaun, watch White Lotus, please.
Shavaun, watch White Lotus so that we can talk about it. But we're all going to have to come together, I think, next week and put in our best guesses, and maybe we do a pool of name the dead bodies, and someone's going to get it. Someone's going to get all the dead bodies right before the last episode, and then I don't know what they'll win. Maybe they win. Maybe Carl has something he can cook up for a winner.
Okay.
A t-shirt or something. We can play a game. Let's see. Oh my God, I love that show. Okay, everybody is excited. How do I join the green room? Cynthia asked. You pay for it, Cynthia. So
no,
you go
it's in the join button. Well, I'll try to post it after. I don't want to mess up the flow here.
Okay,
But
we're not messing up the flow.
I'll put the link in at the end.
Perfect.
I'm afraid I'll hit the wrong button, and since you don't have the controls, the entire show will grind to a halt. And poor Bret, who's been watching this from the green room this entire
let's
time,
bring him on. All right.
wasted his whole night. I don't wait. Let me just check one quick thing.
Okay. We got some final guests here for you guys tonight.
All right. We want to talk about wait, I forget what I call this. Oh, instance karma, right? Because there's instances,
nice,
there's
Greg.
instances, and there's servers, and there's Mastodon, and there's the Federation, and it all sounds like a Star Trek episode to me. So
nice.
we have an instance called Snorkeler.
Snorkeler.
Without the E, because who the fuck knows why? And yeah, and we say we like we've done, but the guy that's done the heavy lifting on this is my man Bret Pettichord, who is here with us right now. What's up, Bret?
Hello.
How's it going, man?
What's up, Bret?
Good. The server's up. That means it's good.
So if you're on our Snorkeler server, the guy to thank is Bret, because this is his Bret Pettichord, Aaron Harris, doing the tech behind the scenes work to get this thing up and running, and we're very grateful to them. So
really,
Bret,
and just really telling us what it is. Like it's
it's
not the other way. So we're so honored and grateful that that Bret and Aaron are like, hey guys, what if we do this? So we're thrilled with it. Bret, let's have you start off by explaining to everybody. And I apologize to everyone in the audience who understands all this. We're just going to assume people don't. And
wait. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, we have to introduce him properly, because we haven't even introduced him properly.
Oh yeah,
he was on my podcast like
he's our
months
buddy.
ago.
He's our friend.
But no, yeah, he was like, Bret, but people don't know who he is, and he's a guy who has been an open source, lord for a long, long time. So Bret, give a little intro to who you are and what your background is and all that kind of stuff, just so people who don't know you will know.
Yeah. So, I joined Twitter in 2008. I was telling people the story, and that was because at that time I was using it as a way to communicate with other open source developers. And so that was my main thing. I was working on several open source projects, and that was kind of my public activity. I had been a speaker and I'd done some other things before, but that was really what I liked doing. I liked doing open source software and kind of changing the way people did things through. I realized there's a certain point you couldn't argue with them. You just had to give them an example or a tool, and that would be how you change their minds. So that's how I got interested in open source software for a long time. And then more recently, I started looking at this Mastodon stuff. I started looking at it in April, actually, when Musk announced his takeover at Twitter, and I was like, "Holy moly, what's going to happen?" And so I've been looking at that, and I've been talking to you guys about getting a server and why we should do it. And then at a certain point, it was like, "Holy moly, we need it now!" And so we put one up, and we're there.
Yeah.
Wait. Here's a question, and this is a good question. What is an open source person?
Okay.
What does that mean?
So there's open source intelligence and there's open source software development, and they basically are completely different things. They use similar words and they have similar feelings around them, but they really have very different definitions.
Okay.
So, with open source intelligence, which I think this audience knows a lot about, open source just means public information. Although usually it's owned, it's copyrighted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But with software, open source software development, you're talking about software that has specific licenses on the software that not only allow you to share it, but essentially force you to share it. So that's why it's one step beyond public domain. Public domain used to be a thing, and this is like more aggressively open than public domain. And so that's what open source software is. And of course, a lot of you know about a lot of open source software that you use. The Android operating system is open source. It's made by Google, but they release it through an open source license. So the other thing about open source is it's sometimes just a way to deliver software, but sometimes it's a development process where it's a open community process, and where people openly work together and collaborate and work on that software, right? And that's actually what Mastodon, that's what I worked on before. I worked on some open source tools called Water and Selenium. I worked a lot of Ruby stuff. And then Mastodon is built in that same tradition with the same kind of people. And it's on GitHub. GitHub is a very good platform for doing these kinds of open source projects. And that's what open source is.
Okay, great. Next question for you, because everyone's going to want to know this. What is the Fediverse? What the fuck is Mastodon? And why are you encouraged, and are we encouraged with having that be our social media expression? It's not that it's to replace Twitter. It's that Twitter is falling apart and we need somewhere to go. And this has potential for you in a different way, and for everyone in a different way than maybe just jumping on the next VC funded, gajillionaire toy that's social media that, is a closed system that, basically you're just a renter. I gave everybody that analogy last time we were on air.
Right. So the great thing about Mastodon being open source is that anybody can take the Mastodon package. If they have a server somewhere, they can put it on the server and they can run it. And, you need a certain amount of technical skill to do that, but anyone with that level of skill can do it. You don't need to get anyone's permission. You don't have to get Gagron's permission. He's the guy that runs the project. You don't have to get permission from anybody. You can just do it. And then there's the Fediverse. So all of these servers, so I make my server, we have our Snorkeler server, right? And then there's some other servers that are out there, and some different people connect, and then they just communicate by sending messages between them. It's basically it's like sending email. It's called a protocol. An email is an old protocol, and this is a newer protocol for sending smaller messages than email. And that's what the Fediverse does. ActivityPub is the name of the protocol. And there's other things besides Mastodon. Mastodon is a Ruby on Rails application that was written by Gagron that implements the ActivityPub protocol. But there are other open source software packages that also do ActivityPub and can also communicate in the Fediverse than just Mastodon. So Mastodon and all the servers, and some of the Mastodon servers are run by the Mastodon Society, right? Mastodon.social is the real big one, right? There's some other big ones that they run. And if people don't know where to go, they go to one of those big servers. And those are run by the Mastodon Foundation, which is in Germany. It's a German nonprofit, right? It's kind of like the Wikimedia, which is another nonprofit that runs a big website, similar kind of thing like that. But that's German, and they run that. But then also any other people can run them. So you don't know who's running your servers, but anybody can run them. They connect together. But then there's these other platforms as well in the Fediverse that are more focused on different kinds of media and different types of communication. And there's a lot of experimentation, both in terms of the technology, but also in terms of community building that comes through that.
Awesome.
This is good. Okay, wait. Before we go further, we have another surprise. We have another guest.
Yay!
Okay. Even though he said in the private chat, don't add me unless you really need to, because I'm totally unprepared. I don't care if you're unprepared.
We don't care.
You're coming in anyway. Aaron Harris, you know him on Twitter as Clearing Fog. What's up, man?
Aaron Harris!
How's it going?
What's up, guys? Good to be on.
It's good to see you.
This is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to be prepared. We want everyone to if you look in the comments, everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, fog. That's it. See? Here, like this. Sharon. Yay, fog. Okay.
My people. Yeah.
Your
yeah,
people.
You know, it's just gonna be this. That's it. You're gonna get a lot of that. So okay. I think Brent, you covered the Mastodon stuff pretty well, I think. And again, there's two, I don't know if you said this now or made it clear, there's two different things. When we say Mastodon, it's really two things. It's really the software that underpins everything, and it's also the whole Fediverse kind of thing. I loved listening to what you were saying because A, I understood it, and B, it sounded so much like a Star Trek episode from like 1978. It was wonderful. all these words. It was really good. So one of the things that you had said as we, because we had a quick call preparing for you coming on, how should people deal with Twitter? What's happening in Twitter, and what are all the tech people doing, guys? Like what like we're not we're not tech people.
All my tech friends are setting up Mastodon accounts. That's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are like, okay, this thing is we were talking about this before. I don't think the Twitter site's going to totally die, because I think there are enough technologists of the new ideology of the platform who will keep it from falling down, right? There are technologists of all ideological stripes, including those we disagree with.
There's at least 1,488 technologists. I think we can agree that's yeah.
So but it's going to be. I mean, it's more and more unreliable already. I mean, people are seeing this every day. They're having trouble with glitching tweets and things not refreshing right, or all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of little glitchiness that's gonna get worse.
Yeah, Aaron, what do you think?
Well, I would say that not only technologists but also cybersec people are joining Mastodon. So I mean, you have an entire the infosec.exchange server is made up almost completely of cybersec folks, and a lot of people have reservations right now about what sort of platforms are safe to join. We've seen recently issues with a couple of other platforms that have, I won't name any names, but that have had some sort of minor issues, and maybe even had to shut down their servers for a couple of days for security reasons and things of that nature. And I think it speaks to Mastodon not as a platform, because Mastodon is not a platform. It's a broad, it's really a protocol. And the fact that a lot of cybersec people and IT folks have actually gravitated towards it, I think speaks well of it on one hand. And I'm really glad that you mentioned the VC capital aspect of it, because venture capitalists, funding social media projects, for one reason or another, is a big part of the reason that we're in this situation to begin with. And I really liked the thread that LB did the other day about, talking about how we had sort of, we've developed, I personally, along with many others, have, spent a lot of time putting content out on Twitter and really putting hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours, into research and writing and things, just to try to inform people. And it's all pro-democracy, anti-corruption, anti-crime, things like that. And we don't really know where it's going to go after this, right? Because this is just a venture capital funded operation, and really in that kind of scenario, it could go anywhere, right?
Right.
Okay, wait.
I want to say this one thing though. So the audience all knows you here. We go bigger on YouTube. So Aaron is at Clearing Fog, right? With an underscore between Clearing and Fog, and is a perfect example of someone who, and I used to do this. I stopped doing it and started going elsewhere. Oh, sorry. But years and years of research, articles, everything sourced, putting threads together, vetting it, collaborating with other people, really built, like a lot of you built this resource, right? It's like and
we did it for free, right?
For free for democracy. We all did it for democracy, for to help everything.
We weren't getting paid to do this. We were just doing it because we wanted
it for Elon Musk. We didn't build it for him to take it, and certainly didn't build it for it to fall apart while Nazis come and infested the whole thing.
Right.
So, the idea that that's not Aaron's is jarring, even though, we're all sophisticated enough to understand that our data was always for sale and other things for sale. But the idea that somehow this thing, all of these years of your life, but also not just your social interactions in your community, but really valuable resource work that evolves over time because new information keeps coming in, is going to be lost. So Bret had a thing you want to make sure everybody does, And we'll get to that. You want to get to that in a second, Greg? I see.
One quick thing. Chunk,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Aaron, again, I brought you in here and I have not properly introduced you because I'm a shitty host of the show.
No.
You're a fantastic host.
People watching this know who you are, but you have these great threads. You wrote one great piece for Prevail about all of the Ukraine stuff that goes back, which is wonderful. But tell everybody who you are. Like, what's your background and what's your involvement with all this stuff? And how did
I was born in Tennessee in the South, in a small town sort of near Nashville. And, I never really cared about politics much until around the Bush years and the Iraq War. And when after 9/11, we go to Afghanistan, seems reasonable. And then the Iraq War happened and then this massive boondoggle. And then you start to ask questions and start to, sort of dig into things. And so I've been sort of concerned about politics for a while, corruption in politics specifically for quite a while. But never really, publicly writing about it or anything like that. My friends eventually got tired of hearing me talk about it. And they told me they actually convinced me to create a Twitter account,
to share it elsewhere.
Right.
Give it to the people, Aaron.
Yeah. So I managed to stay away from Twitter until like August 2019, somehow. And so that's when I, created an account. And so I did. I mean, a lot of the things that I have, read, learned and everything else, I've kind of gone through a process of, I've fallen for a lot of the tricks that, a lot of the ops and tricks and everything else, along the way. I hate to even say this, but the first political candidate I ever donated to was Ron Paul. I was like the libertarian guy in my 20s, like that, And then I was a Bernie bro for a little while because I fell for that too. Over time, I started realizing like libertarianism is really just like throwing out everything about the Constitution except a couple of parts that you really like and want. And so many of these, the commonality really comes down to people who want to destroy our institutions and kind of scrap them, or people who want to make them better. And over time, I decided I was somebody who wanted to make them better. I see the problems in our institutions, but I want to reform them, make them better. And I don't see throwing them away as a good alternative because, when that happens, the people with power and money and everything else, those are the people who actually will end up making the decisions, and that's not really the right way to go. And that's the way things are trending between Elon Musk and the guy that he leaked all the Twitter info to tonight, Matt Taibbi,
What happened? I missed this.
What
happened now?
Matt Taibbi was playing baseball in Russia in the 1990s, and he was hanging out there.
I know about
that.
Oh
my God, what do you know? But people might not know. I don't know.
Elon Musk decided he was going to do this whole like Hunter Biden laptop Twitter files release leak tonight, and
we're competing with it.
This is how quote unquote
he went for the Kremlin stooge. What a shocker!
Exactly.
Shocker.
So Bret Taibbi is now running Twitter's communications department.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So the real question is, who else has he been sharing these internal company documents with? Who else?
All right, we gotta get off of there. I'm sorry, everybody. I know everyone's like, we're gonna stay and we're gonna fight.
Oh my God! If he does that, that means every single thing I said he would do, he's done.
He's doing it all.
I totally predicted the future.
You did. You called it all.
Paragraph that I did.
But Aaron, share with everybody. So Aaron's really working on making sure that and with his expertise in scalability, making sure that we're setting up this home with Snorkeler that it will go the distance, right? And we can keep growing and keep up with growth, and also know where maybe our limitations are as well on the back end. So keeping the engine really ready for the mileage, I guess is the best way to, maybe that's the best way to think about it. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like my professional career is, I've been in tech for over 20 years, and my specialty has been in scalability, automating things, and eventually like leading up to cloud solutions and building out infrastructure at large scale with very large customers. And so we want to make sure that whatever we build is going to be scalable and, repeatable and easily deployable. And that's kind of where I'm, It's where I come into this, right? It was all kind. We all kind of had the same idea at the same time, right?
Yeah, run for our lives. Where are we going? Oh no, they're after us. Okay, so
okay, wait, we got to do
we
this.
get all that.
Almost 300 people here. Hit the like button, guys.
Oh,
yeah, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, everybody,
Thank
maybe
you,
do that. That would be great.
All
Okay,
right,
so now
just
we're gonna go. That was the we had the M dash. We had this very long thing, and now it's the other M dash. Bret, before this, we were talking about what everybody should do on Twitter, and what is that thing that everybody should do on
Twitter? Get your archive.
Yep.
Get your archive.
Get your archive. Yep.
Yeah.
Go in there, request it. I was lucky or smart. I think I requested like the day that, because Elon, he closed a day early, and I was like, you remember when that happened? This was like 3 weeks ago. Ancient history, and he was supposed to close on Friday, and he'll close Thursday night. And I was like, holy crap! I was like, this guy's serious. So anyway, but yeah, get your archive, get your Twitter archive, and I set up an account on Mastodon, so you can come to our site. You can use another site. They all connect. You can follow between any of them, so you don't have to be in any one site. But you're welcome to come to our site. How do you know if you can trust the people running your site? I don't know. If you trust me and Fog, then you can trust in this crew right here on the screen, then you can trust our site. If you would rather have Elon with your private data, you just stay on Twitter. But that's what it is. People think. People think there's lots of layers and layers of security, but the problem is you can have a ton of layers of security, but if the guy in the middle of the thing is totally unreliable, you have no security.
Yeah.
Right.
My favorite part. We were talking about this before in a closed thing, which Aaron, you weren't hip to, but you know all the stuff that we're talking, and we were asking Bret, can we do direct messaging on Mastodon?
Yeah.
And Bret said, there's already direct messaging on Mastodon. It's just not, made to seem like it's private, like it is on Twitter. That's what. Right. So,
it's
people
really
look
interesting.
At it's not encrypted, whatever. So,
but it's not encrypted.
It's really interesting. The direct messaging on Mastodon, really, when you send direct messages to people on Mastodon, they look just like a regular post, except they're marked private, and people don't see them, right? But that really, at the end of the day, is the exact same thing that Twitter does. They just move it into a nice little box in their app that makes it look really, really super private. But it's not. I mean, people at Twitter can read.
Yeah.
People at Twitter can read your DMs. I mean, there are probably hundreds of people at Twitter who can read your DMs.
And you know how you know this? Because you can look through all these government exhibits, and you can see all these people who are organizing insurrection against the government on their Twitter DMs, and actually somehow they all got subpoenaed and entered into court into evidence, because all of that stuff is all on a server somewhere, and you can just get it off the server.
And it's not encrypted yet. And I pardon me for the error. I said there are hundreds of people at Twitter who can read your DMs, but there aren't even that many engineers anymore. So maybe it's tens now. I don't know, but there are some number of people.
Okay, so let's. That's the nuts and bolts of what we're doing. Let's pull back now, because I think we should sort of end on this kind of thing, because everybody's been like, what the fuck is up with Elon? What the fuck is up with Twitter? Like, what do you guys think? What do you think is going to happen now in the next 2 weeks? I mean, the last month has felt like an eternity, but what do you think is going to happen? So Bret, you first. What do you think is going to happen in the next week? What can we expect?
Oh, I don't know. I don't expect. I mean, things are just. It seems like the wheels are falling off more and more. Like this whole Taby move. Like the crew is getting smaller and smaller. Like you know what I mean? And that's what I keep seeing. And it used to be like the guy, oh, I'm going to play this role and I'm going to play this role, and we're going to pretend we don't know each other. Now it's like one of these productions where you've got two actors and they're doing the whole Shakespeare show and they're doing all the different parts. It's like they're like Cassandra Fairbanks or all these different people. They keep popping in these different roles. You're seeing that with all this crypto stuff. And, I saw a whole thread recently that was connecting all the Venezuelan cryptocurrency, and the people who are working with that all gets tied in with these people and these people. So they seem panicked right now. That's just what it feels to me. And so I don't know where this is going or how it's going to go, but it seems like they're making more and more panicky moves. And it does seem like the feds are very, very, very slowly closing their net on people.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
He's also in real trouble with his employment. I mean, he's going to have to pay people a lot of money. He's in trouble over in Europe. It's like there's other things happening that just make it all, I think, a nightmarish workspace that I just can't, from an operational perspective, just a workplace perspective, it just seems untenable. But I don't know.
I agree. I've known people that have worked there before, and I had to kind of go through a whole process when this thing happened because it was just kind of traumatizing. On the one hand, all the people who are impacted by the platform, which is a lot and can often be traumatic, but then the engineers that are involved in it and the way they were being treated. And, many of these people, I don't know how much people realize this, but a large segment of the IT population has H-1B visas.
Yeah.
And I've worked for companies with a lot of these visas, and it seems like Twitter has a lot of these people there. And it's very common for these companies. And if you're on an H-1B visa, your residency in the U.S., it means you're a national from another country, often from India or somewhere in Asia or Eastern Europe, and you're here because the company is sponsoring you.
Right.
And so when that go, it's almost like a form of chattel type of thing. And so the companies that are manipulative love these kinds of people because they can basically order them to do anything. And if they don't, they lose their job. In many cases, they have family and their whole lives will become unraveled. And especially right now with a lot of this kind of happening, I don't know how easy it is because another company would have to hire them and sponsor the visa. And that can be a hard thing to get to happen.
It just sounds perfect for the apartheid guy gets to live out all past fantasies. Aaron, what do you think?
Well, I think in terms of what's going to happen, it's really hard to predict. I mean, with a platform like this, it could go a couple of different ways, right? It could go the route of struggling along for months, maybe even years, because no one really knows the vulnerabilities and what could or could not happen except the people who are familiar with the site itself, the code, the infrastructure, and things like that. But even those people may not really know they may not be able to predict what could happen, depending on where Elon decides to focus his energy from one day to the next. So I mean, it could be a situation where the site just kind of limps and struggles along for years while it's being inundated by extremists and everything else, and it turns into this like massive sort of sink for crypto scams and extremists and things like that, and just hangs out for a while. Or it could be a situation where the lenders eventually start to question the financial stability of the company, and then start calling in their debts, and they end up sort of taking it back and making forcing him out and making someone else take on it, the company, and to try to make it solvent again. And even in that case, who really knows what will happen with it? I think either way, though, folks who really care about the things that we care about, democracy, because I don't think a lot of folks realize that there are hundreds of millions of people who use Twitter, and the large majority of them, they aren't tweeting about democracy and corruption and things like that all the time, right? They're just tweeting about whatever is trending that day, whether it's Kanye or the latest Christmas video that went viral, and that's where probably the majority of the traffic comes from. And so our take on this, I think we have to sometimes back up and realize that our take on this sometimes is a little bit niche in terms of the overall broader population. And if this does sink into this kind of just really broad extremist, normalizing platform, that that's what we're dealing with, is because it can become a tool for so many people who don't know or care about any of the politics or corruption or democracy or anything else to start thinking these things are normal. And that's really the kind of dangerous part, in my opinion. So I do think that anybody who does care about those things should at least already have a backup somewhere else, whether it's Mastodon or what have you. And even if you're on Mastodon, if it's our server or somewhere else, just, at least have a backup so we can at least, keep those common connections, right? And rebuild those networks. That's what I think. I don't have any answers and I don't have any predictions in this scenario, because I think it's really hard to tell what's going to happen, to be honest.
It's always smart not to make predictions.
Not gonna be.
I have learned in the last 6 years.
It's not going to be great either way.
At the end of White Lotus. This is
You mentioned, Aaron, what Elon might be interested in, and what he's interested in is Hunter Biden's laptop. And I'm going to predict right now, the way Twitter is going to end. Okay, all of the servers are going to crash, and all of Twitter, all the Nazis left on it, it's all going to be on Hunter Biden's laptop. That's going to be the machine that runs the whole thing. So Hunter Biden's laptop and Twitter will be the same, one and the same. There'll be this singularity of, right? Is that dumb enough? Is that dumb enough now? Okay, we've dumbed it all down. Nazis, we've done dumb, okay. Everybody's got to download your Twitter archive if you can do that. Just put it in a box, and when the time comes that you need to use it, you'll know what to do. Presumably, I don't know what the fuck to do with it, but I have it. I finally got it. First, they sent me an email and it said they sent me an email 2 days ago, like, you can download this, but make sure you download it by November 5th. And I'm like, that was like a month ago, guys. I don't know. So, obviously not everybody doing great, stuff.
Yeah,
that's like the Y2K where it's 1901 again. And it's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Okay.
Just really quickly, when you download your Twitter archive, it basically downloads a delta from the last time you did it. So the first time you download it, it's going to be big. And then you download it, and then the next time it's going to be smaller. And then, so maybe just do it occasionally every now and then, and, kind of keep up with it.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever I do in the next 2 weeks on Twitter, it's fine. Everyone can live without my. Oh, I'm going to show it. The best advent calendar ever.
Oh,
isn't this awesome? My wife gave me this. This is the coolest thing. And then he just falls a little bit more every day.
That's fantastic. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I'm in that camp, by the way. So
Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It's the best one ever made, quite frankly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that or Miracle on 34th Street, whichever. Pick your poison. I don't know. Okay, guys. All right, we're an hour, and oh my goodness,
we gotta go.
I'm so glad that you guys come on. This was great. Aaron, Bret. It's Bret with one T, right?
It is.
Literally every single person that's typed your name has spelled it with two T's.
That's okay.
2 T's is for Brett Kavanaugh. 1 T is for our Bret.
The Social Security Administration also misspells my name, and I recently am having to get this all sorted out through the various government agencies at the moment.
Is that good or bad for you? I don't know. Never mind.
It's good because
I have a Netflix comedy special. There's a comedian that's going through the same thing, and he has got the greatest bit about it. So I'll shoot that link over to you. It's Tennessee something. Everybody, maybe the folks here know about it. He's hysterical. You should watch it.
I always have my name spelled wrong. I know what that's like. It's Bret with 1 T.
Yeah, Greg is one of those names that can have 2 G's also at the end. Right?
Oh, yeah. It's like, does it have 2 G's? There's 3. No. Greg's with 2 G's are generally, it's not a great thing in my experience. Okay. Apologies to anybody who has 3 G's in Greg and is watching. Okay. So Aaron, Bret, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for putting this instance together. I'm not even going to go into the difference between an instance and a server. Just Google instance and server on Mastodon. And there's a sentence that could not have existed like even a year ago. No one knew what the fuck you were talking about. So again, I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining our membership tiers. Again, next week we'll read everybody I saw a lot of people signed up. Thank you. We'll read your name next week. It's going to be like Magic Garden. It's Carol in the Magic Garden is going to read the names, and it's exciting. And that's what we're going to do from now on. So we're very grateful for that. We're on the Snorkeler. You can see on Bret's thing, social.snorkeler without the E.com. If you're not on Mastodon and if you're like, oh, maybe I should do this, come join us on our server. We're here for you. Us four. We four? Us four?
Us four. We four.
We four.
We four.
We
The
four.
four of us are here for you. I'm going to change the whole thing. Yeah, to say that. And
That's it.
that's all I got. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks to Shavaun Scott for joining us tonight, and she's still here watching. I can't even believe it.
Oh,
Wow. Yeah. Wait. Well, let's have her come up. She can come back on and wave. Wave goodbye. Okay.
I've enjoyed it.
Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks everybody for watching. We will see you next week. Good night, everybody.